Hey guys, what's going on? This is David Chen Pandit on another edition of Pananomics, and it is a Good Friday, literally, except for when you're in Hong Kong, like my good friend Kevin Soltani, who has joined us today, all the way from Hong Kong. Kevin, how you doing today, my friend?
Much love, brother. Much love. Yeah, you're right. Yesterday, when you said Good Friday, I was like, yeah, it's good.
No, you like
So
you got a Good
I,
Friday, and
I,
then it just broke.
I was like, what the hell? I looked at myself and it completely froze. And I checked the Wi-Fi, everything's good. But God bless. Let's. This
This
is
is
this
fun.
is
You know, this is hilarious. I love this. This is great. This is why we do business,
this
because
is
when you travel like this, I understand that poor Kevin is like, oh my gosh, but there's nothing you can do about it because the internet in the hotel is so darn bad.
and listen,
Oh,
we live in the at Hong Kong, and I live in Dubai, which is supposed to be some of the most technologically savvy places in the world, with the best internet, and we even upgraded the internet for this meeting, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, you know.
no, I totally understand. So first off, I think we talk about the future of technology and the lack of communicated and connectiveness because that right there, if we're gonna buy a stock, I'll tell you which one you want to buy. You want to buy the one that has decent internet that not everybody's gonna be upset about. But man, I'm glad you joined us today. It's already been a great start. So you recently left Dubai to go to Hong Kong, man, and tell my people a little bit about you, what you do, and the amazing world of finance and all the things that you've done as of late.
Yeah, if it doesn't get cut out again, we'll see if we can get the whole sentence out. But much love again, brother. I've been in Dubai for about 7, 8 years, but the journey started in Wall Street right after the financial crash of 2008, the famous world-ending crash. And I was a trader on Wall Street. The bank I worked for is no longer a bank. At least it wasn't a single subsidiary. It's under a couple other entities now, just like what happened during that time. And so the world of decentralized assets was introduced to me by one of the smartest people in my life at the time. And I was going to Amsterdam doing some business. Long story short, the gentleman who I'm talking about, Mr. Sheddle Larson, thank you very much, brother, for getting me into Bitcoin and crypto in 2011. He taught me everything I need to know. And I began mining in 2012, crypto mining. And we sold that company in 2015. It was the first legal crypto mining company in California. I say legal because we had an LLC under it. It was very early days. So we sold that and we started GIMA Group in 2015, where we started investing in operating different blockchain products from security systems, payments, remittance, real tech of blockchain got us excited. And at one time, we were, again, the miner part of us never left, but at one time, we were the second largest Litecoin miner in the world, the third largest Zcash miner in the world. And different things happen, flash crashes, hacks, bad eggs and exchanges. So we've seen it all in the crypto blockchain world. But I also come from a little more traditional side, I guess, of non-Web3 and blockchain, which is gaming and esports. During COVID, we listed the second ever gaming and esports company on the London Stock Exchange right after David Beckham's Guild. I was one of the youngest CEOs on the LSE at the time, and I divested out about 18 months later to go back to really focus on blockchain and Web3. Web3 gaming got hot at the time. And I've been in Dubai for about 8 years, like you said, but Dubai's had a great run. I'll always have a office in place there, but I think Asia is going to make a boom back, and I'd like to be here for that. So we're in Hong Kong now and scoping out the scene.
Kevin coming back and getting that Asian sensation over here in Hong Kong. I love Hong Kong, man, and I love Dubai. Those are two of my most favorite cities. Hong Kong has been a little bit different. We talked about earlier. I mean, if you've been there from the '08 years and the 10 years and the years from my Deloitte years over there, and now kind of seeing it changes, it's definitely gone through transformation, but it is definitely up and coming. It is definitely still the epicenter. People can definitely still speak the language, and you can still have mainland China and the rest of Asia. So strategically, I mean, you couldn't even ask for anything better. You talk about Dubai and the
Right.
time that is there. I talk about the parallels of our lives, and I think you and I have followed each other for about 3 or 4 years, maybe, maybe even longer, a couple of years now, right? And we've tried to meet up and talk, and today's been the day that we finally get to do it. I remember talking about all these different areas, talking about crypto and Web3. I don't even know this. When we started doing crypto, I remember the first time I heard about it, and like everyone else, I thought it was crazy. And now you have these guys buying ETFs and buying hedges and buying funds. And I remember sitting there with Gary V, pitching Gary, the crypto that I was part of, that same one that we did with Snoop Dogg, that was very first IRL, right? And Gary has no idea what's going on. Gary calls Jamie. This is a true story. And Jamie says it's a scam. A month and a half later, they're calling Asia. And of course, when you're calling Asia crypto, you definitely, like me, who know it, right? So I'm getting calls, and it's from the same group. And I think to myself, wow, that was a real interesting beginning. I realized what crypto was and the lack of their understanding. And now their ability to sit there and say, this wasn't good. They were buying massive amounts, right? And now you look at the ETFs and you look at what's going on in the world and all the beginning. And when I was in there in 2017, it was like the Wild Wild West, the same time it was with the NFT space. And you were doing all these different opportunities, all these different companies to work together. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, none of these guys know what the hell they're doing, right? None of these guys that were really running it, they were pumping up the stock. He's 27 years old. You ask him what he did for a living. The guy barely graduated college. And to me, I'm from Deloitte, right? You're from the finance world. Like, I believe there are so many geniuses that can do this, but there has to be a form of implementation and control, right? And that's where expertise comes in. But then you started seeing the bottom of all these scams. I almost felt like we're back to '08 again, with the housing market, right? The same up, the same down, and what it did was it left a lot of us hanging there. And then this is where I got interested. I want to think your thoughts about this. Then Web3 comes along. And let me tell you, man, we're big in gaming, right? We have a lot of influence in names. I tell every single person, I was like, if I heard the game, it's not a game. Not a game that doesn't make sense on the market, and they don't want who's in gaming as well as crypto doing it. It's not a game, right? Have you seen a lot of this, a lot of the changes? Like, what are your thoughts about this current crazy condition that we're in, man?
Yeah, you hit it spot on. A couple points. Look, we tend to forget that in crypto, a lot of people got lucky, and I can admit that some of our portfolio was a lot of luck. You can't be jaded and say that it required a lot of hard work, right? To pick a stock and have it go from IPO to 200% up on IPO day is not also luck either. You kind of know good companies are going to perform on first day of stock, release. Same goes with ICOs in crypto companies, but some of these companies aren't really even companies. They're just meme communities that got together and pooled, what's stronger, $1 million buyer or 1 million $1 buyers? And that's what these meme coin communities are, right? They have these mass amount of armies of $1, $100 buyers that are going to pump, certain meme coins and altcoins, and that's inherent luck. Not much strategy went into it. Is it possible that we have thousands of lucky multimillionaires out there right now that never worked a job, that dropped out of school, have no real skill in finance, but are now running multi-million-dollar blockchain tech companies solving something? And most of them have gone into gaming because gaming tokens are inherently easier to sell, and the market for gaming is larger because you can cross over to esports gamers and streamers, KOLs, and so on. So the first iteration of Web3 gaming really sucked, to be honest. It was terrible, and it was a lot of scammy. It was very scammy, and it was preying on weak young gamers and third world countries. And that's what happened. You get a $2 NFT that went to 200. You would play with that NFT in certain games to make a couple bucks a day. Well, in third world countries, that's pretty massive money. That's weekly, monthly type salary money. But what happens when the bottom falls out and you're the last one holding the bag? Because that's what happens in crypto. You don't want to be the last one holding the bag. I don't care what you trade. I'm not that guy. I'm not your dad to tell you don't do this, do that, trade this, trade that. But I'm also here to tell you you don't want to be the idiot holding the bag. And that's what happens with crypto most of the time. The community pumps it, blah, blah, blah. But the main guys, the team, the scammy guys, unfortunately, are the first ones in and the first ones out. And so people don't realize that. And so we don't have many, maybe 50, maximum 100 sophisticated blockchain companies with a token. Many of the best ones don't have a token. They don't have a crypto attached to it, a utility token or a native token. And so you can look at good companies like that to invest in from our perspective. And if you're a token guy, there's great SAFT deals you can make that on token-based SAFT deals that can benefit the VC to help them, and lockups are important and all of that. So there's a way to do it, right? And there's a way to do it wrong. And unfortunately, I'd say 80% has been doing it wrong so far. And then talk about gaming, 99% is doing it wrong because the tokenomics behind the entire token allocation strategy, everything is zip. It's zero. Instead of hiring an MIT mathematician, they're just doing it themselves, right? They're just doing it themselves in mom's basement. And yeah, what I just said is going to ruffle a lot of feathers, but to be honest, that's fact.
Yeah, I agree. I can tell you that my firm, we're coming in now from Deloitte, having an international perspective, right? Knowing what's going on in Asia. Now being part of FaZe, doing all the gaming stuff, being part of crypto, I remember this. In 17, I remember seeing the exact same situation that you and I did. There is a certain amount of regulatory standard. We call it common fucking sense, right? And let me explain this nice word to my friends here. It's a nice word because when I remember going to crypto, there were two thoughts that were running in my head when I left Deloitte that day. One, man, this could be worth a lot of money. We could help a lot of people. Two, they could really screw this up and a lot of people can go to jail. Right? Those are two things I thought to myself. Going into 17, the day of the ICO at TechCrunch, the day that we went to do all this, the day that we bid on Prince Hamden 2020 initiative and came in second to Joseph, to Consensus. We came in second, right, as a no-name company without Samini helping us and Deloitte pushing out, because I'm an ex-Deloitte partner, right? Speaking at the criminal, I bet you were probably there at the criminal regulatory conference. That's where we first had talked, right? Right over there with the banks.
Yeah.
And I remember going on stage and really sitting there and saying, it's just what your digital currency is. And they said, what that means? I said, when I transfer money to your account, literally, you don't have the money. It's digital. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, from my account to your account, my debit card to your debit card. It's digital. I didn't physically give you the cash. People don't get that. I know the second time of this. I was with Li Baogang in mainland China with the China Red at the Bill Gates Foundation the first time they mentioned what an NFT was. I was at that meeting with everybody in Beijing. And I remember sitting in this room with billionaire Chinese people looking around at everybody. I mean, everyone's net worth had been billionaire Chinese people, billions and billions, right? And I thought to myself, these guys are buying parts of the art. So it's like a stock. They're buying portions of the shares of the stock and going from there. The patterns were the same. The rules are the same. Rips are only so many rips you can take, things you can do, so on. If you're a finance guy, a young guy who wants to get in the finance game, anyone that has any credibility, ripping the people off isn't the rip that we talk about in the finance world, right? It's a different rip. And you're right. What frustrated me the most when I look at some of these biggest brands and companies that went through, man, they're dog shit. And I'll say this. I have probably had, Kevin, I'll shit you not, probably 60 to 70 meetings with the biggest guys on the market. And a lot of people know I'm talking, all these different guys. Everyone's already talking about. I will probably tell you that most of them have been backed in a corner, unfortunately, because the market dropped. I will tell you another portion of them had to go into gaming because that was the only logical answer that could get them in a time frame before the VCs and the banks lost their mind within a year and a half. So these are facts,
buzzwords. Guys. Everyone's just jumping on buzzwords, you know?
They just throw shit out, right? And then in the year and a half to two, then I hear AAA game, and then you're like, this is not even a triple. It's not even a B studio. Forget AAA. It's not even a B studio.
Yeah.
So what happened at that point? Well, fiscal irresponsibility was the first one, right? The commonality that we saw in 08 in the housing market that we've seen in everything in our time frames, right? We're all the same age, how quickly money was to be made. Those young guys were making a lot of money and they disappeared, never heard of them again, right?
Exactly.
When you look at the current market that we're in, the gaming side of it, I take offense when I see a lot of these games out there because as a professor that teaches this at universities, as a guy who's fully invested, a guy who clearly plays it every day and lives this life in my mid 40s, right? We have a responsibility to help the world shape it better. That's what crypto was about. It's about helping the
Right.
guys like you and me from different countries that weren't necessarily in the US, or we had to come to the US like we did to learn all the cultural differences, to go back home to help our people. And we realized that every single person out there was just doing the same shit they always do, which is they rip off the common people. That drives me nuts. And as an investor and as a human being, and as a guy who's, in our middle part of our lives where legacy is starting to be a big part of our heads, and what is this going to mean coming through?
Yeah.
I almost start to realize that the only way to help everyone is to be blatantly honest. You don't have to hurt people's feelings. I don't have to call someone out if their project isn't there. But I will say, as a cautionary tale, there are still ways that they can fix it. There's still ways they can do it. But when I see a company blowing X amount of dollars on these other guys, and when it comes to us in the market, we're talking to guys like you and I who've actually been proven from every start all around the world to do it, and they're unwilling to pay, it hits a red flag because it's not about the money. It's where'd your money go,
Exactly.
right? Where did the money go?
Exactly.
And to me, I think on the next run that we're running through here, whether people think it's a game run or whatever the next run is, the biggest thing I've realized is it's a little bit different now. I feel like NFT 2.0 and crypto 2.0 and gaming, crypto gaming 2.0, you saw it. Bitcoin's up to 71, 70,000. The chats are dead. The chats are dead. Nobody's buying because they all understand what's going on in the cycle. So now there has to be real value, right? Real value aspect, big assets that can actually make this work. Do you find anyone in the market that you think is dope right now that you actually see that can actually have any great value-based marketing or anything that they're doing in the space?
Look, I think, listen, people forget that here's a statistic. In 2021, 22, just not so long ago, the volumes of traders, of active wallet holders, of these daily traders was much higher than now. Because what happened? The institutional players, the big whales, are in the market now more than anybody else. So the $1 to $100 to $1,000 buyer trader is not participating in this market. That's fact. That's on paper. That's fact. But you have all these chit chat talkers around town, Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. When they say, if you hear it in the plane, you hear it in the train, you hear it in the taxi, if your grandma starts talking about it, you're 6 months late. That's what it was about stock market. That's what they told us. Now it's the same thing with crypto, except for people are talking, and I promise you, the talkers are this much participating. Zero participating. So the peanut gallery is doing a really good job for the whales. And they don't understand that they're helping those guys make a lot of money where they're sitting on the sidelines begging for 20K Bitcoin or some game, Epic coin from Epic Games, or that GTA 6 in 2025 will come out with an incredible Web3 atmosphere with wallet and token and decentralization. These are all like pipe dreams that we keep selling ourselves. So that the whales keep cashing out. They're the ones winning right now. And that's facts because it's the volumes that are showing that. These are the lower volumes than the last bull run, which means there's less participants making the money on the upside. So that's just one funny statistic. On the gaming side, the first iteration was complete shit and it was a disaster. And I don't think we can have another one. But the same energy is coming into this that anybody can throw something at the wall and see what sticks. We're still in the wild, wild west era of crypto and blockchain and gaming and Web3 gaming. Now, I said on stage yesterday, there's only about 2 years left, maximum 3 years left in this current environment, because the next one, whatever that means, the next hype cycle goes to 200K, a million, whatever. Who cares what the number is? Because it's going to be theirs. It's going to be them, those guys. Those guys, we worked for them back in the day. And those guys are going to run the shows. Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund is investing quietly the word is on the street that they're the ones buying up this market. Coinbase, OKX, a lot of these companies, they're running out of Bitcoin. They're running out of supply because there's big buyers buying them all. And so less participants are playing. And so we need to see what does that mean for us. Gaming's iteration was terrible. There's a mass lag right now coming from esports and gaming. We all know that we're kind of in a downslide of and so what are we going to do about it? I think that gaming, good gaming companies creating atmospheres for these guilds and these DAO structures can work, but we need game developers creating good games. And that's cliche to say, but it's not happening. It's not happening. The Metaverse had a terrible run as well. In Dubai specifically, there's more Metaverse design companies than God created people. It's like God bless this, phase of keywords and buzzwords. Now we have AI. AI is a little more sophisticated, much more respected. So if you're building in AI and you come from an AI ML background, good for you. But who came from a metaverse background? Who came from a Web3 gaming background? Nobody. There's no degree for it. There's no, nothing. There's very little master classes on it or YouTube videos. So we all kind of threw stuff at the wall and saw what stuck, and not much stuck, right? A lot of the shit fell to the ground and is gone. And 99% of those coins, of those ICOs, gaming or otherwise, are down 99%. And so again, the normie, the normal person that just got in, hype on crypto from all ages, is losing money. And that's just not good for our industry, which is a beautiful industry that can make things better, faster, stronger, more secure. I'm talking about the blockchain, and it's not going anywhere. And when we talk about tokenized assets, which I'm sure we'll talk about because BlackRock is getting in with a fund, everybody's trying to touch this tokenized aspect of real estate, real world assets, and that's a complete securities. So again, the little guy is going to be left out of this equation because Wall Street is taking over again. And it's right in front of our fucking eyes, and no one wants to realize it. No one wants to see it. And I've been in crypto for 12 years, and I'm the most maxi decentral guy in the world. But I'm also a realist, and I know that regulations and licensing and authority is the only way that they're going to let this survive. And it was the beginning of the end with the ETF. I'm happy, but it's what can I do about it,
It's so beginning to the end of ETF. Everyone's screaming. Like, oh, I'm like, look, it's going to shoot up. Obviously, the big wigs are buying the assets. And now you hear turn around. BlackRock saying, what did he say this day? Oh, crypto is a good buy. I was wrong. I shouldn't buy. Yeah, so the crypto's market. Of course, you're going to say that. Negative 30% doing what they're trying to do. To me, we did what we did best. We took it from what it was worth to making it selfishly ours, and the end result was nothing that we were going to get out of it. And you're on the gaming side, man. These games, they're not great games. And the one thing I tell a lot of guys, I was like, you want me to go pitch my community and tell my community, the one that we built so hard to work with together, the honest community, to tell them this is a top game and to go buy this when I know that you have no assets backed behind this, or I also know that they won't even buy it because they heard the word crypto NFT, they're running to the borders, right? So they don't even realize what you and I realize, which is there has to be a clear distinction in the brand and the game, and the economic is a whole different discussion. What they said, and the pipe dreams of a GTA 6 and the pipe dreams of these things. The tech will be there, no doubt. It will be fun. It'll be 2 years. AI will help out. But are they going to have their own coin? Absolutely not. Which multi-billion-dollar company would ever put a coin on a game and lose their whole company based off of the security or the utility use of whatever government in whichever country at that time deems it to be? No, they're not going to do it because no businessman would ever have done that, right? And we're not saying these things.
Right.
I go to, dude, Kevin, I don't even go to conferences, man. Like, I probably got like 3 conferences, right? I spoke at all. Dude, I go to conferences and I'm like, what? How is this possible? Like, how are we really sitting here? And it's not to bash, it's to tell people,
No.
yo, there's a real quick exit strategy, and there's a real one that you can probably put together, but it's not by, I think, running the same schmuck, over and over and over again because it doesn't work out. You know, other investments that you're looking at, anything else that you on this side, what excites you now? Because esports obviously took a big shit, right? I sat there, I lived it from the top to the bottom, and still sat there with all my shares. Watch again, poor management do its thing and cash out. Same thing that happened. Same thing happened in FaZe. Poor management, same decision, same thing. The big guys on top grab the cash. Where do you see esports right now?
Look, I can tell a very honest story, and it's my story in London. We IPO'd, which is a very traditional thing to do in esports, but it was London, so it speaks the language to those investors. We IPO'd the gaming company, the esports company, in the middle of COVID, and it was successful in its first 9-10 months. 430% went up and went down. The only reason why it went down was the lack of innovative bone in their body in the UK. And if you're listening from the UK, you know exactly what I mean, because if you're not a doctor, lawyer, financier, you have no reason being in the UK. They have one of the most massive brain drains of tech entrepreneurs, because there's nothing that garners their brains, mind, body, and soul. So they all go to Berlin, New York, and now Dubai. And so esports for us was indicative of that moment. Look at the best teams that came out of the UK. Fnatic is based in UK, one of the longest running names in the history of esports, but they're all in Berlin. They won't touch the UK. And I say that story is because now we're seeing a MENA region push for esports. We're seeing a Saudi MENA region push. And I have a large talent agency in America, and I promise you, none of my kids want to go play in that region. Money aside, because money is alluring, but at the end of the day, they're young, talented kids that have one chance to stay young. And they'd rather be in Hollywood, in LA, where I'm actually wearing 100 Thieves shorts right now, as it looks funny up here, but you know how these conferences go, where we're all different down here. And I'm wearing the 100 Thieves shorts because some of my players are contracted for the team. And I don't have to tell you about their operations. They started selling more pants and jackets rather than winning championships. So they got called the hoodie org. But guess what? That sells. Guess what? They're actually turning a profit and revenue selling shorts and pants for $120, because it's all what you just said, branding, right? Coming from a financial perspective of running a company, not a gaming, entity. We're still so young in this phase. You got to think about it like 1970s or 60s NBA, where the leagues were starting to develop. And if you had the money, stadium, and you had that ticket to buy into the NBA, you could move your team from a smaller town to a larger city and become the LA Lakers from the Minneapolis Lakers, right? And so when the NBA got established, media rights and blah, 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 all the things we all know, esports, as cliche as it seems, is in that moment. A lot of teams are going to disappear because they can't afford the buy-in, proverbially. And a lot of teams will survive and become the top 10 and future names of this industry, which we're already seeing the cream rise to the top, the Cloud9s, the G2s, the FaZe, the Complexities, some names that are all over. They're doing the future of the games. But then again, you have MENA region. I told you, they're dropping dimes. They are dropping absolute dimes. And they're going to host, Saudi is going to host the World Cup of esports. But is it the World Cup? We call the Super Bowl the World Championship, but we don't let anybody else play in it, right? We call it the World Series of baseball, but we don't let anybody else play in it. Arguably, we do have the best players. They want to come to America for showcase their talent, but esports is not that. Esports is regional as well. Brazil, Vietnam, Turkey, future markets like India and Iran opening up when their access to servers get better. So esports is going to have a tough 2 years because we started overpaying players too. I think you'll admit to that too. I was a team owner. I was a team operator. And we kind of got in such a hype phase that we started overpaying these players just like KOLs. But there was no delivery because there's no media rights. Brands see us still as kids and streamers. And really, they're not converting. Kids will stream on Twitch and Kick, but they're not being able to sell anything. Now, who's the one that sells anything? It's that bottom logo to the right of the stream that says Lexus or, Hanes, Fruit of the Loom, anything that's like retail based, because that's what buys eyeballs. And the CPM rates for those companies are so damn low and so cheap that they have zero risk to put, $1 million into an esports team. Now, that's a lot harder to sell because that's what ultimately broke esports in this phase. We couldn't close brands to sponsor our teams. We couldn't close brands to sponsor our jerseys and the championships that these kids were winning. And so ultimately we can't pay the bills and teams will shut down, right? That's just very basic economics. This next iteration of esports needs to be driven, I hope, and I don't know if this is a popular answer or not, but more sports driven teams, not like the first iteration. Golden Guardians was owned by Golden State Warriors. They could have done anything with this team. And if they're listening, God bless it, contact us, because you have everything. You have everything, but you did nothing. You did absolutely nothing. Opposite the Philadelphia 76ers organization, they run a couple good teams and they were able to exit, right? Madison Square Garden Group owns CLG, one of the most storied teams of all time. And they exited for 32 million. At a business standpoint, that's genius because they got out at the top, right? For their investors. From an esports perspective, it's extremely detrimental. So it's guys like us that are going to need to hang on. And I'll use the words from Gary Vee. Just hold on for another 7 years. He said that 4 years ago? So hold on for another 3 years. And you got a multi-billion-dollar potential operation. And I'm gonna agree with that.
I agree. It's funny because, you talk about, I mentioned Gary, you talk about Gary. I pitched Gary FaZe. When Gary had that red hoodie, it was me who gave it to Gary twice, right? So now Gary with the dive, now Gary with FaZe. So Gary, and he bought Minnesota, okay? Here's my argument with esports right now and everything else. I 100%, and that's been our model since the beginning. We started NACL, the North American Collegiate League, and then we bought into FaZe NACL, then we did everything else. Thought on training grounds, all the things we did. But if everyone knows that in our world, the things I do, it's all celebrity-based people with gamers,
100%.
or it's celebrities who are gamers. Because you and I realize one thing: no matter how many viewers they were having, no one in their right mind in the corporate world could understand how anybody could sit there and watch league. And when your argument was, well, you're watching baseball for all these hours and you're not going to be playing baseball, they still couldn't comprehend it. It wasn't that we didn't hit our numbers. It wasn't the numbers weren't there. It was almost like it's too good to be true, so let me just say it's not true. But on the opposite end, let's just keep pumping it up for crypto and then say it's true. So for me, it was definitely a frustration on your end because we all realized this was a very qualitative valuation. It was the movement, it was the media. But the biggest thing, I think you're right. When I look at it from the point of view, I think it's not caring about the guys. I think it was a lot of overpayment. I think it was a lot of underperformance. But the thing that frustrated me the most, I feel, is when you have something as great as this, and at that point, with the age that we're at, we got what we wanted. We should be the leaders. I feel like a lot of the guys didn't want to do content. And for them, it was like shooting out content was the hardest thing to do in the world. And the guys who are professional gamers were like, I can't do content. And I'm like, bro, you're not that good for everyone to stare at you. Like, you're just not that good. And even if you're that good, you should be better. You don't hear Jordan saying, I'm not going to film because I don't want to have my jump shot. And that was the biggest problem.
But Jordan was fucking good, mate.
Right? Oh, my God. And it would drive me nuts because I would, then I teach this, I'm telling this. I'm like, dude, this is going to be all content based. It's about viewership and ad time and revenue. It's for entertainment. You go to these tournaments. There's no beginning. There's no middle or end. One of my students right now is Ben Naramore. Ben's the head of Sony PlayStation Global Network. It's my student at SMU. Like, I'm helping him, telling the game. And me and him talk about things all the time. And my narrative, I did 2 classes there. One class I said, in November, I said, the biggest thing that's going to happen to these leagues, it's going to take the publisher or somebody to sue them for the leagues to not ever exist because a $25 million cap is insane for Call of Duty. It's not right. It's not fair. I don't think it's the right thing to do in IP. They had sold all the promises to Overwatch, Robert Kraft and them. That went to complete caboose. because what the publishers didn't realize was you can't run it like a sport because it wasn't a sport. It's a sport, but not in the same sense. It's more of a media play. It's more of it's more people watching on consistent play. And I don't think they got that. And I think the other thing is in 2.0, you're right. I think when I look at some of these guys that are coming in, Jerry and them, they just bought a big chunk of phase and going from there, and they sold complexity. So that you and I both know where that's headed. That's headed phase. With Cowboys, we already see it. We knew that phase. 100 Thieves were doing the exact same thing, right? It's definitely the hoodie season. It was fired. And phase oversaturated the market. It wasn't cool anymore. It was just trying to pump it up to maintain your numbers, right? I believe that the big amount of assets is not just buying, teams and players and management. I think it's buying the ecosystem, structurally sound, because the biggest problem I feel is like the young guys don't believe anybody. And if you're lucky enough that the young guys believe you, then you better hold on real tight, because I know that's a really, really hard thing to do. And in this place, it's hard to inspire. But I feel like if the games are right, the community is right, and the brands trust you, the brands have a better time working with you as long as you execute, and I think you go above and beyond. So anyone that we manage inside, it's like with you, like if they don't go above and beyond, there's no reason of being with them, because it just hurts you and I in the end, right? I'm not there, even if they made $100,000 or $1 million, I'm getting 20%. That's still not enough money to lose that client for the rest of my life. It just isn't, right? And I think a lot of young guys forget that. But on the flip side of it is, I think it starts from the very beginning. When we went into Cloud9 training grounds, and I joined that company, my thing was training them not just on a STEM and an academy side, but on a content side, on ability to say who you are and going from there. And I look at all the regions that you're saying, outside of infrastructure, especially in Africa, with these, with Laveron probably being the only good telecommunication company out there, right? And people flying all the way to Saudi Dubai. You've said it 100 times. There's a reason that as much money as they put into there, people, it's not Hollywood. You can make it Hollywood, but there's still a cultural difference that, quite frankly, Hong Kong understands that the rest of mainland doesn't. Right. And it's the same thing, right? Or Shanghai, I would say Shanghai gets it. Shanghai gets it pretty well. I would say those two are definitely on par. The same thing you're talking about the New York, but not to the traditional, the London, where there's no movement. Right. And I think that old mentality in some of the old cities aren't where you can develop, but a new mentality, new cities you can develop. And I think if you find the right guys with the right spaces, there's a complete hope. And I look at current investments, buying more assets and more IP, I think, is the biggest thing that needs to be done, because that influences everything. Right. And that's where I see a lot of the future in things. And having these guys and working with them and having the ability to actually have them do things that are above and beyond. I think if you can do that, if you can pull a Vince McMahon, right, before he was all terrible, all the bad things he did, but as far as making people do the things they need to do and getting it done, I think there's a greater chance in shooting that. As we're wrapping up, Tim, I want to ask you, what excites you in the upcoming, sector or industry that you're looking at that's really hot for you?
Yeah, I wanted to say something because I think you said something. I think you said the most important thing that needs to happen for esports in its next iteration in order for us to compete with traditional sports. We all know it's going to flip in our lifetime. The flippening will happen from all sports. I'm going to go out on the limb and say every single sport, even football, soccer football, will get flipped. Cricket, I truly believe this, will get flipped by the time I'm my father's age. Not in the next 10 or 15, but by the time I'm my father's age, every single sport will be flipped to a digital esport gaming, whatever we want to call it, esport. But you said what it's going to take. And I think this is very important. Clip it, cut it, post it, whatever, because no one's talking about this. The content side and the professionality of that content from the gamers, so that the media rights and the streaming rights and anything rights can come in and pay us, so that we can distribute that money back to the players, which is what they want. You want to make more money, then start fucking acting like it and talking like it. So what we did, not to plug it, but you said it, and God bless you for saying this, because we have teleprompters for our players. We do media training for our players. This is out of my pocket. This is out of my pocket. This is fact. I force them to take acting classes, believe it or not, because when they're streaming for 8 hours a day, they're acting, right? And I got mental health on them, psychologists and psychiatrists. We got the whole bit out of my pocket because I know what it's going to take. And is it ironic that, got to pat ourselves on the back? We got 7 championships in the tier 1 esports, and we're constantly making contracts with bigger and better brands because they know how to talk. Now, I'll have one kid, and I'm not going to name him, but he knows who he is, where he didn't take any of these classes. He didn't take any of these media trainings, this and that. And guess what? He's also the one valued less of any of the players. But he's the best player, David. He's the of all of the 10 players I'm talking about, but he's valued less because they don't care about you can click it fast enough and win a championship anymore. They want you to put on the hoodie, say a couple cool things, maybe, be a good looking, sexy in their eyes. You don't need to be good looking and sexy. It's what comes out of your mouth that really tells it all. And so I hope esports players can take a little bit of that. And I know it's so damn hard being an introvert and all of that. Trust me, I was one. But with training and media training and a teleprompter can change your life, right? So we do that. I'm sorry, I needed to point that out because you said it, and that is the main reason why esports failed, because we were overpaying them for just playing. But you don't overpay Kobe Bryant for just shooting a ball. He was also extremely talented coaching. He was a player manager. He was a brand ambassador. He spoke 7 fucking languages. He did everything you wanted out of a human. And then he was a player, right? And then he was a player. So thank you for saying that because it's so damn important. And I know people are going to forget about it and not going to read from a teleprompter. They're not going to be professional and just play the game. And I can respect that. Trust me, I can respect that, guys, players out there. But you're not going to get any contracts. No one's going to look at you. I promise you,
Yeah,
you're not going to get on a billboard, So we got to do this together. This is our job, to be honest, David. This is our job. It's not their job. It's our job. So,
100%.
to answer your question, where we're looking at is intersection, is the intersection of, we can do a lot of cool things in blockchain still. A lot of great things can happen in gaming and blockchain. Web3 gaming will have its day. To the economies of Web3 games are actually really beautiful when you break down play to earn, right? Play to earn can be really amazing if you kind of put the 4 walls around it and make the tokenomics of that infrastructure such that it's not a depleting inflationary asset that is going to constantly go down as the game gets more users and more. It should be quite opposite. So I think someone is going to figure it out in this run. I think we're going to get a couple good games that people can get, attached to. And let's not forget that the NFT market for gaming, the secondary market for gaming tokens, are extravagant, multi-millions of volumes, multi-millions of dollars in the secondary markets, which means that David buys an item, sells it to Kevin, and Kevin goes and sells it to someone else. This is actually really beautiful for Web3 gaming. If we had this back in the World of Warcraft days, all of us at this age would be trillionaires because we would have kept that sword or that skin or anything, but it wasn't valued at anything. I'm hoping that we can start to reward players for playing games. And I said something which I'm going to stick to too. I don't think I'm going to buy my son when he's 16, 15 years old a PlayStation. I truly don't think I'm going to have to spend any money. In fact, I think he'll sign up for a program where Sony will pay my son to play the game. And that's the flippening that's also going to happen in gaming / esports, where maybe esports companies will not even pay a salary to the players anymore. They'll just give a percentage of the rights to the media and streaming and blah, blah, blah. And so they can save on the front end and load the back end. And now you got to prove yourself. Now you got to get up in front of the media. Now you got to play games. And so I can see that happening too. So that's where our focus is the next iteration of gaming as it pertains to the crossover of blockchain. I truly do like Web3 games. I'm just waiting for the right company to build one so that we can kind of invest in it and market it from there. So the intersection, if I had to pick one, is still that.
I love that. I think I have nothing to disagree with. That's the best part. And typically, when you talk this,
Yeah.
they're not spitting from the heart. They're not being honest like me and you. They're not saying the truth. They're not pointing out the obvious because they're protecting themselves and only themselves. And to me, that's a short-term business person, right? That's the guy who has the one hedge that you never, the one fund that you'll never hear about again for the next 40 years, dude. That's the type of things that you hear. So for me, I love that you think that. I love that that's a reiteration. I love that's the importance of you. I completely agree, man. And we will see what will happen. And Kev, I appreciate your time. I know it's already late, or it's
Likewise,
early
brother.
over there. It's 11:15. It's almost lunchtime for you over there, right? So I appreciate
All
your
good,
time
brother.
calling in,
Appreciate you.
and I would love to continue this discussion and seeing where we're going to head out in the future of esports and crypto and what the collaborations could potentially be. From my friend Kevin and David. Kevin, tell them where to find you on social media first.
Yeah, I appreciate it, brother. Thanks for having me on, and continue to give that energy, man. You're the energy ball in your community. You're the energy ball in your investment groups, whatever. So all I can say is I don't have to tell you this, but keep doing what you're doing. I've been a fan and friend from afar from a long time, and soon we'll see you in Asia and Dubai. But right there, I think my name, Kevin Soltani at Instagram, and the same in LinkedIn. These are two places I do my best work. And if there's anything I can ever do to add value to you out there, if you're listening from a player, from a team, from a VC perspective, let us know. We're very open arms and we're here to build it together. We can't do this shit alone. 1970s NBA, a lot of mergers, acquisitions, a lot of moving pieces, moving cities. Be flexible, be patient, and I promise you in 3 years, we won't kind of a grim conversation. It'll be to the moon, as we say in crypto.
100%, man. Kev, I appreciate you for your time. For David Chen and Kevin Soltani here at Patanomics Podcast, you guys have a good Friday night.